Vande Gujarat.
Hello, welcome back to another session for Linguaskill reading module. My name is Nisha Mehta and I'm the functional English trainer with Scope. In the last couple of sessions, we looked at what Linguaskill is all about, what is the test format for the reading skill, and what are some of the specific and general instructions that the candidates can follow to ace the examination. Now, just to make sure that you know the test format and you know what exactly Linguaskill is all about, what is the examination all about, and you're watching us for the first time, you're watching this module series for the first time, let me share what Linguaskill is all about and what is the test format, some basic instructions that the candidate must follow to help him solve all the questions of the examination. Let's see what Linguaskill is all about. Linguaskill is a test that tests the candidate's proficiency in English language in all the four aspects, whether it is reading, writing, listening, or speaking. It is a computer-based test that can be taken anywhere in any part of the world. Candidates are given questions based on different difficulty levels so as to assess them appropriately. Now, the questions can range from simple topics or simple to difficult ones. The proficiency of the language is assessed on the CEFR scale. What is CEFR scale? That's a Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, where A1 is a beginner level and above B2 or C2 is a proficient user. Linguaskill, we all know that is available in two options. One, it is Linguaskill Business, and the second one is Linguaskill General. Linguaskill Basic or General exam tests the proficiency of English language used in real or routine life, whereas the business exam tests the possibility or the proficiency of users' language in business or corporate setting. Let's move ahead and see what do we have next. General instructions and tips for reading section. Now, if you're new to the reading section, to the reading module, let me share some of the instructions and tips that would help you to ace this examination. Now, in the first question, the candidates will read words given around the gaps to decide what is missing in the gaps. So basically, it is a gap fill question. The first question will have the gaps that the candidates need to fill. The gaps will always have, sometimes the gaps will have choices to fill in. The candidate will receive the choices to fill in. However, in the next set of questions, the candidate might not get the choices to fill in the gaps. Now, in this module, I will also talk about how to go about filling the gaps with appropriate words. Let's move ahead and see what is the next instruction. To know what is missing in the gaps, the candidate must know the placement of different parts of speech in the sentences or the basic sentence structure. Now, most of the times what happens is, let's just get this part correct and let's just understand this part very carefully. The missing words in the sentences or the gaps in the sentences can have any part of speech missing in the sentence or in the gap. Now, as I said, part of speech. There are 8 parts of speech in English language. Now, English language, when we talk about the 8 parts form the sentence, or these are the parts that form the complete sentence that we speak or read. Now, when one part of it or one part of the sentence is missing, the sentence will not make any sense. So, the candidate, when he appears for the reading section of gap fill, it is important that he gets to know or he understands what part of speech is missing from the gap. Hence, it is important to know the parts of speech in general and in detail so that you know what part is missing from the sentence and to fill in the right part at the right place. This is how gap fill questions are attempted. Now let's move on to the general instructions and tips for reading. Again, the 4th point says, the given options to fill the gaps are quite similar to each other. They are very similar. When you look at the options or you look at the choices given to you in the examination, the choices are very similar to each other, and at times it is difficult for the candidates to decide which is the right answer. Now, candidate must study the collocations to understand which word would fit in the gaps instead of studying the vocabulary list of the single words. Now, what happens is, the gap fill questions are such questions where at times the candidate is given the option, they are given the choices to fill in the gaps. However, there are times when the candidate is not given the options or choices to fill in the gaps. Now, that is when the difficulty level arises. जब कैंडिडेट को ऑप्शंस नहीं दिए जाते तो उसे खुद ढूंढ कर लिखना पड़ता है कि उस सेक्शन में, उस गैप में क्या आएगा. So what happens is, when the candidate has to think for himself to fill the gap, तो वहाँ पर ज़रूरत पड़ती है पार्ट्स ऑफ स्पीच की. नाउ अगर कैंडिडेट को ये पता है कि कौन सा पार्ट वहाँ से मिसिंग है, if the candidate knows what part is missing from the gap or from the sentence, he would easily be able to fit in that part and complete the sentence. Now, with the gap fill questions, it is important to know, it is just a handy tip or you can say just an instruction that the candidates can follow, which is when there is a gap fill question, whether you have the choices or whether you don't have the choices, there are a couple of grammar topics that will help you ace this test, that will help you to get the right answers in the gaps, to help you write the correct answers in the gaps. Now, what are some of those grammar topics? The first is, obviously, we spoke about conjunctions. Now, just to give you a brief idea what conjunctions are. When we talk about conjunctions are basically joining words. Joining words like and, but, or, for, since, about, in, into. These are some of the words or conjunctions and prepositions that will help the candidate fill the right word in the gap. Now, if we talk about conjunctions, as I said, they are the joining words like and, but, because, since, as. So these are the joining words. So when you join the sentences, it is necessary to make sure that the sentences stand independently. That is one of the reasons we have two types of conjunctions. Now, two kinds of conjunctions which we have is the subordinating conjunction and the coordinating conjunctions. Now, when we talk about coordinating conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions, the coordinating conjunction mean that your conjunction is just there to make the sentences look independent. So let's take an example and let's use and but as a coordinating conjunction used in the sentence, in the sample sentence, just to help you understand what exactly or where exactly these two conjunctions are used. So for example, in the gap fill question, if you have to fill and but, and your question or your sample question is, I am going to the office, there's a gap, I will not have my breakfast. I am going to the office, gap, I will not have my breakfast. So when you say I'm going to the office, that sentence stands independently. वो सेंटेंस इंडिपेंडेंट सेंटेंस है, वो खत्म हो गया है, एक पूरा सेंटेंस है, it is a complete sentence. And then there is another sentence that says, I will not have my breakfast. Right? So, I won't have my breakfast or I will not have breakfast is something which is again complete, a complete sentence. Now, these two sentences are joined together with the help of and but. If at all you know exactly what and where to use and but, or how to use conjunctions in your sentences, I am sure that you will be able to fill the right answer. So and but, where do you actually use? When both the sentences on both the sides are complete. So it says, let's just say the sentence once again with the help of the conjunction. It says, I'm not going to the office and I will not have my breakfast. Or I'm going to the office and I will not have my breakfast. I will not eat my breakfast. You can also use but in place of and. It can be replaced. So it says, I am going to the office, but I will not have my breakfast. So this is how a conjunction is used in the gap fill questions. So in order to make sure that your gap fill questions where you have no choices, where most of the times the candidate has to think for himself and then put in the answers, that is where you want the conjunctions or the prepositions to be in place. Now, when we talk about prepositions, we have spoken about prepositions, I think, almost several times in the previous modules and series too. Prepositions are such words, they're very small words, such words that whenever you use them, if they're wrongly placed in a sentence, you will see that the meaning of the sentence is completely changed. The meaning of the sentence completely changes with these words if they are wrongly placed. So when you have gap fill questions, always make sure that your prepositions, if they're asked, and most of the times it has been observed that in the frequently asked questions, we also see that the gap fill questions do not have the basic prepositions or conjunctions asked from the candidates. The gap fill question will not say that you have to use in, on, or at, or maybe to. The gap fill questions will always ask the candidate for a little difficult words like beneath, underneath, below, under, above, against, towards. So these are some of the words that will be asked to a candidate in the reading section. So it is very important to make sure that your key concepts are very clear. It is important that you think about or you prepare yourself on those topics, on those grammar topics that will help you ace this examination. Now let's move ahead and see what do we have next with us in this module. So in order to fill the gaps, please make sure that your collocations are in place. Collocations, as we have studied in the earlier modules, in the earlier series, it says that collocations are the words, the group of words used together to form or to give meaning to the sentence. Instead of preparing the single list of words or vocabulary words, please make sure that you try to prepare yourself with all the collocations, with the group of words that come together. Let's move ahead in the general instructions category and see what we have next. So it says, the candidate must read the texts, extended texts, carefully to understand the viewpoint stated. In every module, we talk about these general instructions and tips again for the candidates to let them know that these are the points which are the basic points, and these points will help you ace the examination. Even if you are not comfortable with the test format, and if you know the basic instructions, the basic tips, you can clear the examination. You can always clear the examination just with the help of basic instructions and tips. So, a candidate must read the texts or extended texts carefully to understand the viewpoint stated. Now, since these are the general instructions, the instructions will be based on the gap-filled questions, as well as they would be based for the text and extended text questions too. These instructions are applicable to all the kinds of tasks which are given in the reading section to all the candidates. The candidates must prepare for some crucial grammar topics like prepositions, articles, auxiliaries, helping verbs, pronouns, adverbs, verbs and conjunctions. Now, just to give it a little depth, or just to let you know what these are, we will do them in detail too. We'll do the prepositions in detail, and we're going to do conjunctions in detail too. Now, what exactly are articles? Let's just talk about articles first. And what are auxiliaries or helping verbs? What are pronouns? What are adverbs? Adverbs are something that we have even done before in the speaking modules or the speaking series. However, just for your reference, adverbs are the words that tell you the quality of an adjective or a verb. They give you the quality of an adjective or a verb. Verbs are basically all the actions that we perform throughout the day. Now, what are auxiliaries and helping verbs? Helping verbs and auxiliaries are the part of tenses, and they tell you exactly when did the action take place. It is possible that the gap-filled questions have the auxiliaries to be filled in. It is possible that the gap-filled questions might have something related to prepositions and conjunctions or adverbs and verbs. Hence, it is all the more important to know all the topics in detail. Articles, let's focus a simple, let's take up the concept for articles too. Articles are basically the words like an, the, and a. Now, why do we require articles is because it's not that you will be asked to fill in the gaps with the articles. It is possible that there are gaps or there are gaps to be filled up with articles. The candidates might have to fill up the articles in the gaps. But it is also possible that these are the words or the articles that you see right before or after the gaps. You can definitely see them before and you can also see them after the gap. तो क्या होता है जब आप इसको आर्टिकल्स को ज़रूरी नहीं है आपको आर्टिकल्स गैप्स में फिल करने के लिए आएगा. नो, ऐसा ज़रूरी नहीं है. व्हाट हैपन्स इज आर्टिकल्स आप गैप के पहले और गैप के बाद भी देख सकते हैं. नाउ अगर आर्टिकल्स गैप के पहले लगते हैं, if at all articles are used before the gap, what happens is you will see that the articles that are used before the gap, maybe the gap might have either a noun in place, वहाँ पर हो सकता है कि कोई noun आ रहा हो या फिर वहाँ पर कोई adjective आ रहा हो. Adjective का मतलब होता है quality that you assign to a noun or a pronoun. तो ज़रूरी नहीं है कि आर्टिकल्स जो है वो गैप्स में फिल करने के लिए आए. ऐसा it's not a set format. There's no set format. It is possible that you may have articles right before the gap or right after the gap. Now अगर वो गैप के आसपास होते हैं तो कैंडिडेट को एक आइडिया लग जाता है कि गैप के अंदर आने वाली चीज़ एक नाउन है या फिर एक एडजेक्टिव है. और वो कैसे होता है मैं आपको एक एग्जाम्पल दे के बताती हूँ. आई एम द मोस्ट ब्यूटिफुल गर्ल इन द वर्ल्ड. If you say I'm the most beautiful girl in the world, and if there is a gap there just before or just after the, let's just think that the gap is there after the. I am the dash beautiful girl in the world, right? Now if at all the हमसे पूछा नहीं गया कि उसके अंदर गैप के अंदर फिल करना है, बट हमें द दिखाई दे रहा है गैप से पहले. We see the before the gap. Now when you talk about the before the gap, you will have either a choice of filling a noun or you will have a choice of filling an adjective. Now I am the. When you talk about I am the, now what will the have? We have already used a noun and pronoun in the beginning of the sentence, which is I. So we cannot fill the noun or the pronoun later too in the sentence. Now if I say I am the dash beautiful, beautiful is an adjective. Then what is supposed to be filled in the gap? Now that the which is there helps you know or helps you pick up the degree of adjective that is used. The degree of adjective. What is the degree? Now, obviously, we know that there are 3 degrees of comparisons in adjectives. The positive degree, the superlative degree, and the comparative degree. And we use the before the superlative degree. We always know that the comes before the superlative degree where anything expressed it is at a very high stage. At a highest stage. So we used the most. We used most there. And most beautiful refers to a complete adjective or maybe an adjective which is a collocation used in the sentence. I know it's going to be a little difficult for you to understand this point when you are straight away listening to this series. We have already spoken about collocations in the previous sessions. So it is very important for you all to go through the previous sessions on reading skills to understand what are collocations. In short, in this series, I would just mention that collocations are 2 or more words coming together to form sense or sentence in the examination. 2 words that are used together and have a meaning. They actually tell you the meaning of the sentence. Okay, let's look at the instruction or the tip that we have on the screen. All right, as I said, the articles are a, an, and the. Now, a, an, and the will have proper rules to be followed whenever you put them even in the gaps. गैप्स में अगर ये फिल करने के लिए आता है तो ए, एन और द आपको तीनों ही पता होने चाहिए कि ये कहाँ पर यूज़ किए जाते हैं. नाउ लेट्स से कि अगर आप द फिल इन करते हैं, सो द will always be used. The will always be used to make sure that you have geographical locations, or maybe any location to describe, or maybe anything that has to do with the earth, the moon, the planets, the galaxy, the universe. So the is basically used where you're referring to the geographical locations. A, where we use a or a is actually used when there is a single object in the sentence, or a single noun, or a singular noun you must say. And it is very obvious that we know any word that begins with the vowels has an article "an" there. For example, an apple, an elephant, an egg. So by now you would know what are prepositions. Prepositions are basically words that tells the relationship between one noun and the other noun used at the end of the sentence. One noun used in the beginning of the sentence and the other noun used at the end of the sentence. Articles, we have just 3 articles, which is a, an and the. Auxiliary verbs or helping verbs are the verbs that tell you the timings when the actions took place. Pronouns are the words used in place of the noun. Like for example, if I don't want to take somebody's name, if that person is a boy, you use he. If that person is a girl, you use she. And for the objects or inanimate objects, we use it. Let's move on to the conjunctions. We also mentioned what conjunctions are in the previous sessions. And we have also mentioned that conjunctions are of 2 kinds, which is the subordinating and the coordinating conjunctions. Coordinating conjunctions are just the conjunctions there to join the independent sentences. Whereas subordinating conjunction means one sentence acts as a subordinate to the other sentence. So obviously, if it is a subordinate, if we talk about subordinating conjunctions, it is used where one sentence is dependent on the other sentence. For example, the use of because, or the use of since, as, for. In the sentences, I'll give you an example of the sentence. I could not attend the meeting yesterday as I was not well. I did not give my presentation today because I was not well. So these are a couple of examples for subordinating and coordinating conjunctions, and they're going to help you fill the gaps. Adverbs, we know that the words that end with an ly are adverbs. Verbs are all the actions that are going to help you with your gap-filled questions, whether you have the choices or whether the candidate is provided with no choice at all. So these are some of the crucial grammar topics that you need to prepare when you are giving the reading exam. Now let's move on to the next instruction and the last instruction we have, which is candidates can also make flashcards of the words that are frequently used as a part of the exam. That's the most important tip. If at all, you are not good in remembering the things. You're not good at remembering words, you're not good at remembering the collocations and stuff. You have to make sure that your flashcards, or you have to make sure that you make small little cards that are pocket friendly so that you can write the words and the collocations and a sample example in a sentence. You can use the words in the sentences and then you can keep them with you as a reference. You can do this just before the examination so that you have an idea as to what are some of the words that are frequently used and how they are used in the examination. How you have to use them is what will help you, or is what these flashcards will help you with. Okay, now this is one of the most important topics that we are going to discuss in this particular section. Now, overall, we have seen that the reading section, specifically the reading section, has five different questions or parts that the candidate is asked to answer. Two of them will be the gap-filled questions, and the rest of them will be the text or the extended text questions. Now, the extended text questions, I have also shared what are some of the grammar topics that you require, or what are some of the things that you really require to study for when you attempt the extended text questions. I've also shared the tips and instructions for the same, and also the gap-filled questions. Now, there's this one topic which is a very crucial topic, and I wanted to do that with you so that you know exactly what to fill in the gaps. Because gap-filled questions are the only questions that can give a little bit of difficulty to you in the examination, to a candidate in the examination. Now, what is the topic? The topic says recognizing the different parts of speech in the sentence. Okay, so the basic sentence structure. Let's talk about what is the basic sentence structure. Now, any sentence in English, any sentence you pick up in English, it has a subject, it has a verb, and it has an object. Now, the subject can contain a lot of parts. The verb is an action, and the object can also contain different parts of speech. Now, what are those parts? We are going to talk about it. Now, verb stands independently. जो verb होता है वो independently stand कर रहा है. Subject के अंदर कुछ ऐसे parts of speech हो सकते हैं, object के अंदर कुछ parts हो सकते हैं. But ऐसे कौन से parts हैं जो subject में हो सकते हैं, object में हो सकते हैं? अगर वो gap filled questions में missing हुए तो आप उसको notice करके आप उसे fill कर सकते हैं. And that's the reason why we are doing, or why we are touching this topic. So the subject of the sentence can have a noun, can have a pronoun, can have a determiner or an article. तो जो subject एकदम beginning में आता है, जो beginning होता है, sentence की जो beginning होती है, the sentence makes sure that it has a subject. You know, whenever we speak in English or when we read something in English, every sentence has a subject. And that subject तो एक बहुत बड़ा topic है जिसके अंदर बहुत सारी चीज़ें आती हैं. Now, subject can have nouns, subject can have pronouns, subject can have determiners, it can have an article too. Noun, as I said, the name of any person, place, animal, or a thing. Anything that has a name is categorized under noun. And if you don't want to use a noun, there is a pronoun in the subject. And if there are no nouns or the pronouns, the subject or the sentence is not beginning with a noun or a pronoun, then definitely it is beginning with an article or it is beginning with a determiner. Determiners can be this, that, these, those. So the sentence can begin with any of these. And if you have a gap in the subject, you know what to fill in the gaps. And if you have a gap in the sentence, in the middle, right in the middle, it is possible that there is a verb missing in the sentence. So verb stands independently. Verb मतलब क्रिया. क्रिया अपने अलग ढंग से अपने अलग जगह पर खड़ी रहती है. And towards the end, we have the object. Now, object says, the object can also be, object is a bigger term. Under object, we have things like noun, we have things like pronoun, we have adverbs and adjectives used as an object. तो अगर कैंडिडेट को ऐसा लगता है कि कोई चीज़ इन जगहों से मिसिंग है, the gaps are there at these places. The gaps are there maybe in the subject or in the middle of the sentence, or maybe the gaps are there right at the end. The candidate can think about what is missing in the sentence and can quickly fill the gap with the required part of speech. Let's just look at what do we have next in the basic sentence structure. Let's look at the examples and then try to categorize what do we have as in subject, verb and object. The first example says, the lion started to roar when it heard the dog barking. Now, whenever I give instructions and tips to the students, to all the candidates, I refer to the part of speech again and again. Why do I refer to the part of speech? It is important for every candidate to read the sentences and to categorize the words used in the sentences as different parts of speech. Now let's take up the first example. I'm just going to do the first example for you. I will do the first example for you, and I would really love if at all you go ahead and do it yourself as an exercise. This will help you to know what part of speech comes right in the beginning, right in the middle, or at the end of the sentence. So like for example, the sentence says, the lion started to roar when it heard the dog barking. What is the in the sentence? Let's categorize everything. Let's break all the sentence, the entire sentence. Let's break all the words and categorize them into some part of speech. So, do you have your pens and paper ready? Okay, let's begin. The. What is a part of speech which is the? Or what is the here? Yes, you guessed it right. It is an article. What is lion? Now, you know that lion is a name of an animal. So think about it, what it is going to be. And yes, you guessed it right. That is a noun. So we have the article, the noun in the beginning of the sentence, which is the subject, which is forming the subject of the sentence. Now let's move ahead and see what is started. What do you think is started? Started का मतलब होता है शुरू करना. तो शुरू करना कौन सा part of speech है? Now you see on the screen, you see that first comes the subject, then comes the verb. So we have the subject as the lion. Now we have the subject. What is the next thing that we are going to get? The verb. So you have the verb as started. Again, you have a small little word there, right there, which says to. Now to is a preposition as I discussed earlier. And a preposition is always placed after the verb. Preposition की जो placement होती है sentence में, वो हमेशा sentence में verb के यानी क्रिया के बाद होती है. When it is heard or when it heard the dog barking, let's talk about roar का मतलब क्या हुआ? Roar मतलब गुर्राना, right? So roar actually is a sound that the lion makes. Okay, so the lion, we said that it is an article, it is a noun, started is a verb, to is a preposition, roar again it is a verb. क्योंकि क्रिया है, verb होगा, right? When, now it says when. When is actually a conjunction and it is also a subordinating conjunction. वो अगर देखा जाए तो दो सेंटेंसेस को जोड़ रहा है. यू सी द लायन स्टार्टेड टू रोर, ये एक सेंटेंस हो गया. इट हर्ड द डॉग बार्किंग, ये दूसरा सेंटेंस हो गया, राइट. बट जो दूसरा सेंटेंस है वो पहले वाले सेंटेंस के ऊपर डिपेंडेंट है, एंड दैट इज़ वन ऑफ द रीजंस व्हेन जो वहाँ यूज़ हुआ है वो दो सेंटेंसेस को जोड़ रहा है, एंड दैट्स व्हाई इट इज़ अ कंजंक्शन एंड अ सबऑर्डिनेटिंग कंजंक्शन. It heard the dog barking. Now, it, we all know that it is used as a pronoun. Heard, again, it is a verb. The is an article. Dog is definitely a noun. And barking is a sound made by dog. So, obviously, bark is a verb. Now, I'm sure you would by now know how to categorize every part as a part of speech. How to categorize all the parts under different categories. Now, why are we doing this? I have few other examples for you. If you see second, third and fourth, I would really like all the students to just categorize everything, every word under different parts of speech as a practice. Now, why are we doing this? Why are we actually categorizing everything in different parts of speech? Is because this, अगर आप देखेंगे तो पूरे सेंटेंस में से कोई भी एक चीज़, कोई भी एक वर्ड, कोई भी एक शब्द अगर मिसिंग होता है वहाँ पर गैप आएगा, और वो गैप आपको एग्जामिनेशन में फिल करना होगा. नाउ इधर तो क्या है कि जो भी सेंटेंसेस हमने यहाँ पर लिखे हुए हैं, द सेंटेंसेस दैट यू आर सीइंग, द सेंटेंसेस दैट यू सी ऑन योर स्क्रीन, दीज आर द सेंटेंसेस दैट हैव नो गैप्स. But you're still trying very hard to actually categorize these into different parts. And that is how you know what part will fit where. Now, even if you do a second example, let's look at the second example just for your convenience. It says, the manager committed mistakes that harmed the growth of the company. Right? The manager committed mistakes that harmed the growth of the company. Now, examination में अगर ये sentence आपको आता है और gap कहीं पर भी आता है, whether it is in the subject, हो सकता है कि subject में manager की जगह पर कुछ दिया ही ना हो, there can be a gap where that there is a manager, so ज़रूरी नहीं है कि manager ही आपका वहाँ पर आएगा. You can also say the team member committed a mistake, because noun अगर fill करने आता है आपको gap filled questions में, nouns can be any noun. Now, any person can commit mistake, right? So, noun can be a team manager too. The team manager member committed a mistake. The CEO of the company committed a mistake, right? And that harmed the growth of the company. Now, the gap can also be there, right there, which is the verb, committed. Now, when you look at committed, अगर गैप फिल्ड क्वेश्चंस में आता है एंड यू गिवन एन ऑप्शन, गैप फिल्ड क्वेश्चन में आपको ऑप्शंस दिए होते हैं चूज़ करने के लिए, इट इज़ पॉसिबल कि कमिटेड से कुछ क्लोजली रिलेटेड वर्ड आपको दिया हो, जैसे कि मेड. कमिटेड मतलब होता है करना, राइट? सो द मैनेजर मेड मिस्टेक और द मैनेजर कमिटेड अ मिस्टेक, बोथ कैन बी अ पार्ट ऑफ द गैप फिल्ड क्वेश्चन. अगर आपके पास चॉइसेस हैं तो आप चॉइसेस में से राइट और क्लोजेस्ट पॉसिबल चॉइस डाल सकते हैं. अगर आपके पास चॉइसेस नहीं हैं, देन यू कैन थिंक अबाउट एनी अदर वर्ड दैट विल हेल्प टू कंप्लीट द सेंटेंस in the right way, or best possible answer that you can put in the gap. And that is one of the reasons it is very important for you to know what part of speech is placed where. What part is placed where in the sentence. And if that is missing, that forms a gap. और अगर वो gap आपको questions में आता है exam में, तो वो gap में आपको पता होगा कि answer क्या है. राइट? क्योंकि गैप्स जब आते हैं तो अगर आपको गैप के क्वेश्चन या गैप का चॉइसेस नहीं मिलती, इफ़ यू डोंट गेट द चॉइसेस इन गैप्स, राइट, you don't have any choices, you just have to think on your own and you have to fill it. You can just go ahead, fill in the gaps by looking at the words right before and right after the gap. Okay, so I'm pretty sure these are some of the tips that will help you ace this reading task. Now let's look at the other examples. It says, he has been asked to give a presentation about time management in the company. Now it says, he has been. He is what? I'm sure you guessed it right. By now, जितने भी लोग मेरे साथ examples solve कर रहे हैं, people who are candidates who are solving the examples with me, by now you would know what is he. हमने अभी discuss किया था, he is a pronoun. Now, what is has been? Has been is an auxiliary verb or a helping verb which is a part of tense. What is asked? Asked is a verb, एक क्रिया है. To is again a preposition. Give is again, give मतलब देना, और देना जो है वो आपका क्रिया के अंदर आता है. It's a verb. Presentation, A is an article, जैसा कि मैंने ये आपको बताया ही है. A is an article and presentation is again a noun. About time management. Now about, just think about what is about as a part of speech. About मतलब होता है के बारे में. So this, अगर आप बोलते हैं के बारे में, presentation किसके बारे में? Time management के बारे में. Right? So time management is a noun, but के बारे में is a preposition. Okay? So about is a preposition and in Hindi, obviously it means के बारे में, किसी के बारे में. In, again a preposition, and the is an article, company is a noun. The last example, I want you all to solve it yourself as an example, as a sample question, and categorize all the parts that are there in parts of speech as we have taught in this session. So the question is, at first, her eyes filled with surprise. At first, her eyes filled with surprise, and then she burst into tears. सबसे पहले क्या हुआ? उनकी eyes that was filled with surprise, and then वो रोना शुरू हो गई. Now every part you're going to categorize in a part of speech. Let's see if you can do that. That's just a sample that you have to solve and see if you can categorize all the parts as correct parts of speech. Now let's move ahead and see what we have. Learn to recognize, categorize, and fit the right part of speech in the gaps. Now if you understand, since the beginning of the reading module, we have been talking about the 8 parts of speech in English language. We have been talking about a lot about the parts of speech in English language. And what are the 8 parts? If you're watching us for the first time, I would just repeat that in short for you, which is noun, pronoun, verbs, adverbs, adjectives, conjunctions, prepositions, and interjections. Out of which we have already done what are nouns, what are pronouns. Nouns are all the names. Pronouns are everything or any word that you use in place of a noun, like he, she, it, they, I, we, you. These are all the pronouns. Verbs are all the actions. Adjectives are all the qualities that you assign to all the nouns and the pronouns. Whereas adverbs are all the words that are the questions, or adverbs are all the words that are used to describe a quality of an adjective or a verb. These are some of the parts of speech that, if at all you prepare it, it will help you with the gap-filled questions. Now, all the parts come in order in any sentence. If you look at the basic go back and look at the basic sentence structure, you will see that all the parts come in an order of the sentence. Candidates should be well aware of the placement of these parts in the sentence. Candidates should know where they are placing the parts. Because the gap-filled questions are such that these questions are, sometimes you get the options to choose, and at times the gap-filled questions are simply the questions where there are no choices provided to you. And you have to think on your own and fill in with the best possible answer. Now, till the time you don't know what part is missing from the sentence, you won't be able to use the word right there. Now, majorly, I would just suggest that it is a suggestion, or you can take it as a tip or an instruction, which will come as a handy tip, is that whenever you fill the gap-filled questions, it is always necessary to understand that most of the gap-filled questions that you get in the examination, Linguaskill examination, all the gap-filled questions, majority of the gap-filled questions will have prepositions as gaps, or maybe some conjunctions or verbs as gaps. So do not forget to learn or to know about collocations. Do not forget to study more about prepositions and conjunctions. Now, talking about the reading section, we have in all the previous sections, in all the previous series, we have shared the format of the test. What are the types of questions that the candidates can expect? What is a grammar topic that the candidate needs to prepare before he or she appears for the examination? And the general and specific some instructions and tips that the candidates must follow to ace the examination. In the last series or the next series, we are going to discuss about what are the prepositions that you can be asked in the examination. What are some of the gap-filled questions that you can get based on prepositions? I'm sure you might have enjoyed learning more about the reading skills and the reading topics, that the reading tasks that you may be asked in the examination, and you've learned more about the reading questions and the format too. We will meet in the next series with a lot of grammar topics to help you ace the examination. That's all from my end. Thank you.